7:04, sorry, we'll call the meeting to order. We have a quorum present. So the first item on our agenda is review and approval of September 14th meeting minutes.
I'd like to remove not the for reference only, that doesn't need to be in the minutes. Take that out.
Second motion.
What number is that?
That's the stuff.
That's the back, so it's
Oh, I
the
see.
back two.
Right.
Yep, because that was just from the last meeting, so. So I motion to, brought forward and seconded, just to remove the for reference sections of the items, so.
Okay, from the
Yeah.
minutes?
Yep.
Okay.
Any further discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
I would like to make a amendment or a change or to number 14. The committee found difficulty with 6 line down. The committee found difficulty with the opening sentence that began with, "As a member of this committee," referring to my letter. And there was a lot of talk about this at the last meeting. There was talk from Chairman Fleming as well. And so I want to just clarify that. I do not believe that the entire committee, every member here, found difficulty with the opening sentence. For reference, I just want to play from the actual meeting where I submitted it, and I actually stated I'm submitting it for myself. Oh, good. Because there were some statements that were made that were not accurate. So at the meeting, I followed Robert's rules.
Number 4, Al Holman expressed appreciation for Blythe Robinson's written opinions and asked that we send a thank you letter to her. I just want to comment, I want to thank her too. I have a written letter that I just want to submit from myself in response to her written testimony. I don't need to read it out loud. I just want to submit it for the record, so it's just a response because it was Robert's earlier.
So I go and submit it, and then Mr. Holman asks
Yeah, it'll be the next 7 minutes.
Dan if he has a letter to submit as well.
That's it now.
So at that time, the 3 members of the committee that were present, nobody questioned the letter at all. After that, there was a packet that was sent out to everyone on 8/31, which had my letter in it, Blythe's letter, all of the minutes for the entire committee to review. Again, following that, Mr. Fleming addressed the committee. I was not here. He called this submission an embarrassment, and he also said that none of the committee members were made aware of it, and everyone had it a week earlier. So he also mentioned, and I quote, "No information coming out of this committee that I would call rogue, yet all the committee members were made aware of it, and you actually all accepted it earlier in the meeting minutes, number 3, everyone accepted my letter." So I would like those committee members that still honestly feel that as a member of that I represented myself not submitting to the committee, as the video clearly states, but from this committee, after all of the communications that I had to go through, the verbiage that I had to get cleared from the committee, the survey question, the PowerPoint slide. So to call my letter rogue and an embarrassment is very divisive to this group and all the hard work that we have put into this committee to date. And it really bothers me that I'm getting targeted by members of this committee when nobody at the time spoke up, everyone had the right information, and then false statements were made to the committee. I don't think it's fair. I don't think we as a committee should be functioning this way. I'm a citizen who followed Robert's rules to the T. If anybody violated open meeting law, Mr. Holman, you did when you sent out that communication directing everyone to look at my letter specifically So I'm not sure of what the intent of all of this is, but I would like those committee members that feel that my submission was from them to be named here, and those that didn't to not be included in that line.
Well,
Oh,
Through
let
the
me just say, yeah, through the chair, I think the discussion from the last meeting about that, you're right, was contentious. There's definitely some strong opinions from different folks on the committee on this issue. I think it's important, one of the things that came as the last discussion about this was that it was your individual opinion with regard to the item, the letter that had your name on it. So at this point, I will let.
I don't have, I don't
It's
have,
important to have a dialogue about this.
I don't have a problem with you having an opinion that's different. There are two issues that came to the table. First issue was, the argument was, it starts out as a member of the committee. As soon as you wrote that in that letter, whether it was your intent or not, it represented that it was an opinion of the committee.
That is totally incorrect.
What did it start
It
with?
is totally-
Skip,
Well, point of order.
Yes.
Point of order, please.
Point of order.
what did it start with, is my question. Read the first 3 or 4 words.
What I need to do, Mr. Holman, is to read what Mrs. Robinson wrote, that
No,
if she was in front of us
Yeah.
No,
and submitted her testimony, as said, I would have responded to her, Mrs. Robinson, as a member of this committee, and more importantly, as one of the petitioners who sought to create this committee. For the purpose of this review, I have a statement to make. That is how I responded to the committee. I submitted my letter to the committee. I didn't submit it from all of you. My name was on the bottom. It didn't say TMA. I am both of those things. I'm a member of this committee, and I'm also a citizen who brought forth the petition. And with it out of context, as it was presented by you with that PDF that you created and sent violating open meeting law to all of the TMA members, that's where the wheels go off the bus. And then to further make it very divisive for this group, Mr. Fleming calls it an embarrassment, and that none of the committee members were made aware of it, even when all of you had the information a week earlier. So that is a false statement that was made, totally targeting me.
Mr.
And that I've
Chairman,
now
So,
gone.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna.
So I would like this to be changed.
If I might,
Point of order.
if
Thank
I
you.
might, as opposed to having somebody go off for several minutes at a time.
Thank you.
The reality is, it doesn't matter when it was submitted to the committee. We hadn't reviewed it officially here before. But the reality is, I agree with Mr. Holman. The wording of it implies that somehow the committee feels as though the paper applies. That's
So-
how my opinion is about it.
Hold on for a minute, please.
That's how my opinion is
Hold on.
regarding that communication.
Yes. Hold on.
We
one
did
second.
indeed approve it when we approved the minutes, as it was attached to the minutes.
Can you explain to me what that means to you, the approval of it? It doesn't mean that the committee approves the content of the document.
Yes.
What does it mean to you?
If you,
So-
if you,
Point
we
of order.
approved
I
the
can't hear everybody
minutes.
all at once, so if it's going to come through you.
Point of order, please. Yes. I'm
Well,
actually
attached to the
gonna
minutes.
stop this discussion because I think in the last meeting, we made it very clear that was an individual opinion. There's definitely strong opinions with regard to this.
So I would like the
So
minutes to
if you can just
reflect,
ask me what the edit you would like to
motion
have in this
is
section.
the minutes to reflect, to change the word "the committee" to the specific committee members, because I don't feel that you, Dan, or Liz felt that communication, that the first line, the committee found difficulty with the opening sentence. I would change that to Mr. Holman and Mr. Rosenfield have found difficulty with the opening sentence that began with "as a member of the committee."
So
That is my motion,
so,
change the minutes.
Actually, I think Mr. Desjardins did also, and I think Mr. Ralston did also. So actually, it'd be more appropriate,
So-
Mr. Chairman, if I can just finish for the record. It'd be more appropriate if certain members asked for it. I don't think it's appropriate for the petitioner to ask that everybody else's name be excluded. If those people
So-
don't want their name in it, then that might be another thing.
I'm actually gonna take a point of order that I'm not gonna let anybody's name be in it with regard to the minutes. I want somebody in this committee to offer up some discussion about essentially that there was a difference of opinion between committee members. I would agree. I think from the last discussion that we had at the last meeting, there was a very clear presentation made by several members that there was a concern that it was going to be viewed as something coming from the committee, and that is truly not the case. That was your individual statement. So that is important to do that, to make clarification of that. The second part of that is just to make sure that it doesn't reflect that that was essentially the entire committee's position. So I think it's important, because I think one of the things that's important about this committee is for all of us to come here and have spirited discussions and talk about things, including things that may be difficult with regard to some of these issues and that we are strong and passionate about. I don't think we need to get stuck in the mud about the details of that. We just need to recognize one another's opinions and move on. So with that regard, looking at the wording of that, I'm going to read the section again. It says, "The committee found difficulty with the opening sentence that began with, as a member of this committee."
So I don't,
So instead of named, I think it's important for us to say that a certain number of committee members or something along that line to the language because I'm one of the folks that I don't have a problem with the statement.
I don't have a problem with this
I
statement
would,
either.
I would strike that line totally, and I would just leave the second one.
Point
Several
of order,
members,
Mr. Chairman, she wasn't even present.
Sorry.
So to change what words, what was said then.
I
is not
watched it on
appropriate.
video.
She wasn't at, it doesn't matter, she wasn't at the meeting.
That's correct.
So I don't have
That's correct. If you weren't at the meeting, you can't vote on the minutes.
okay.
Can't take action on these minutes.
So-
I hope we get into semantics. I'm
So-
really going to enjoy this for the entire
And
meeting.
we're not going to get into semantics. I think it's important for the committee to consider striking that sentence just because it just creates a division just for the purposes of creating division. That's unnecessary in this committee. It really is.
I agree with that.
Well, there have been many instances where there's been difference of opinion, but if I recall the last meeting, a majority of those in attendance had discomfort, had concern about the communication. So I wouldn't mind if you changed it to a majority of the committee as opposed to the committee.
Well, we didn't take a vote, so we
We
can't
didn't
say a
vote, so
majority.
Well, I remember what everyone said. So a majority of the committee did have concern. So that wouldn't be an inaccuracy to say that.
I believe a couple committee members.
We didn't
other
take
than-
a
Four
vote,
members
so
of the
we can't
committee
say.
expressed their position.
The 4 former selectmen, should we
No,
say that?
Actually,
No, I don't.
It doesn't matter whether they're
It
a
doesn't matter who they
candlestick maker or whether they're a selectman. They're members of this committee. I don't know what your implication is, but it certainly is
You
inappropriate.
seem to know
It
my
certainly is
opinion.
inappropriate.
Point of order. Point of order. So we're going to move past this. I want to have a proposal to look at changing the language with regard to this, because we're not going to have any kind of unnecessary arguments because of just people's strong differences of opinion. We're not.
We have had such good meetings, constructive meetings.
Yes.
And for it to devolve in one meeting, after all of the hard work that a lot of us have put in, is not the way it should be. We need to be a cohesive unit, and to making accusations, false statements, that's wrong. It's wrong on so many levels.
So, with that being said, the single sentence that's being discussed, the committee found difficulty with the opening sentence that began with, I will entertain one or two words to say several committee members had expressed that concern.
No, I'll make a motion and say a majority of those in attendance expressed it, and that's what happened. 4 people, 4 members of this committee present
Then let's vote
expressed
on
their
that.
opinion about it, and that they weren't comfortable with it. They didn't feel it was appropriate. That's what was said that night.
That's fine. I don't personally have a problem with 4 members of the 9 that said that. I don't.
You wouldn't say 4, you'd say majority. Majority would be the right description.
I don't like the majority.
We're gonna,
Is that a form of a motion?
yeah, is that a motion?
A motion.
I'll second that motion.
So we have a motion on the
Change the
table.
word to, change it to majority of the members.
A majority of the committee found difficulty with the opening sentence.
Right. There's been
So I have
moved
that
and
first
seconded.
and seconded.
Mhm.
Any further discussion about that? I think it leaves intact the differences of opinions. There were actually only 8 people at the meeting, so it would be a 50-50 split. Or actually,
50/50.
whatever, it doesn't really matter, actually.
All those in favor?
So
So how many ayes are there?
further discussion? Any further discussion on that matter? Done?
I don't think
So we have the motion out, so we'll vote on it.
Right.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye?
Those opposed? Aye.
Aye.
Only you. Okay, whatever.
What? I think we're doing semantics.
Well, I think the chair votes,
I only vote, it's 2 to 2, and I would be the tie-breaking vote.
right, but there isn't 2 to 2.
2 to 1.
It's 2 to 1.
It directly involves the individual.
2 to 1.
How's it 2 to 1?
2 to 1.
1.
The
So-
chair doesn't vote?
So, no, at this point,
Mm-mm.
so we'll make that one edit. 4 members of the committee,
No, majority.
the majority
Majority, right.
of the committee members present.
Yep. That's an accurate representation of what happened.
Thank you. Okay.
What's the next thing on the agenda?
Update on progress of town manager direct reports. Donna Marie, can you give us an update of the summary that's come back to date?
We sent out 61 surveys, 14 returned to date. 2 reminder emails went out on 9/11, and on 9/26, an email went out with the deadline of October 4th. 30% said yes to the question. 69.23% said no. And there's comments listed on the yes and on the no.
So I want to just have the committee members just to essentially keep this as part of committee correspondence with an update with regard to that.
We made an agreement that only those comments that came back with names on them would be accepted as input.
Well, they have to come back with names because they're sent out to email addresses to a specific person.
So I'm gonna do a quick coordination, just a point of order for everybody in the committee. Donna Marie has met directly with Manager Brindisi and has coordinated essentially how that survey was to be done through his office with employees at his discretion. So at this point, all I'd ask is that Donna Marie or Liz follow up with him with regard to the feedback that comes back, review it, essentially making sure that it essentially comes from just the information and folks that were surveyed. So to your point, we don't get things from people that weren't intended to be surveyed.
Of the 61 names all came from the town of Upton, people that report directly to the town manager. Those were given by Sandra and by Mr. Brindisi. Those are the 61 names that were all people that were surveyed. Every one of these comments has a name attached to it from Upton.
So at this point, just as a follow-up to
Members.
Al's question, which is a valid question, which has been something that's been important to make sure that we don't let information in that's not been vetted properly. On the follow-up for the next October 4th, just, Donna Reef, I would ask you to report directly back through the manager to make sure that the information that we've gotten from the reports that come back in the Survey Monkey does what was intended by the committee.
It sounds like you've already checked on
I
that.
have.
Yeah.
I mean, are you looking for the
you
individual
satisfied?
names?
No, if Donna Marie says
Yes.
that they were all names, that's fine with me.
They're
cool.
only people that were approved by the town manager.
Okay.
And
As long as there was a name attached to them when they
Every
came back,
single one.
that's fine. That was the only issue. And
This
if-
was a lot of
When were these
copy and pasting.
emails, these 61 survey emails sent out? What day?
The original date,
9/11 and 9/26, right?
well, that's when the reminder
Yeah,
emails were
okay.
sent out.
Okay.
I have to look it up.
Approximately August?
Yeah, whenever we determined the verbiage,
So middle of August, early August?
I would say early August.
My point then is that 6-7 weeks have passed and only 14 have been returned out of 61. That's a pretty low turnout,
Yep.
Mhm.
so I'm not sure you can really give much consequence.
Actually, that's, it's not necessarily a bad turnout when it comes to these types of surveys.
Well, October 4th is when the drop dead date is, so I would say that I would suggest that we wait till the October 4th and then come to closure on it then. I think that'd be proper. Of course, at that
Thank you.
point, then, it will be tough to include it, but I think we have an obligation to wait.
Yeah, I think we just look at what comes in. I mean, like I said, everybody just needs to look at it. I'm not sure there's going to be anything that's surprising in it. So that takes care of that. The second item in that, number 2, was the report of the subcommittee. Myself, Donna Marie, and Debbie Ann Merrily did get together. Each of us has a task to start building on information that myself and Steve Racketon were
On average.
we're going on. So that's the update from that committee. Old business was continued review of committee held lines and table lines of the TMA is the next item on our business. So we're at a point where one of the discussion points with Chairman Fleming at the last meeting was to essentially make sure that we get a majority of folks to go through our committee held lines. I think it's so vital to have a majority or as many of the folks on the committees we can get to that meeting. Here's Debbie.
All right.
So we're at a point now where we are down to the handful of held lines. We have, I apologize, I have to go looking for the last August meeting minutes to have a discussion, thankfully for,
That's what I'm looking for right now. The line by
line, it's in the August 24th meeting minutes.
Bingo.
And I will refer everybody back to the August minutes.
I think we voted on several of them.
We did, and we have, so if we go back to our August 24th meeting minutes,
I'll start wording those.
item number 16 from those minutes, it was the line 63 through 73.
See. We also did it on 26.
Correct, so 16 was one of them for that.
One second. Item number 26 was subsection K was supposed to be a different subsection, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'm trying to pick up, we actually have several things done already, and we've already
Yeah.
voted on some recommendations.
Right.
So if you go through, there's 8 motions in this meeting. Item number 16 was a tabled item. It's lines 63 through 73 of the act. I'll read it for the committee's purposes, for the public. It's related to the 15-day period for the holding of disciplinary issues. The last discussion point from our committee, the last 2 lines is actually very valid to pick up on, is this further discussion highlighted the fact that this is a complex issue that involves appointments, disciplinary action, and the role of the Personnel Board. The committee will request an opinion of the Personnel Board, so we decided to table that. So I'd like to turn that into a motion.
Why don't we move, the motion would be to refer this to the Personnel Board to make the personnel bylaws consistent with the Town Manager Act.
Again, I'd like to add to that, because I think in getting feedback from different people and doing a little research myself, I think there's instances too where there's an opportunity for the Personnel Board and the Selectmen to consider not just changing the bylaws if they find that there's not significant issues with the bylaws, but maybe considering policies and procedures to implement the bylaws in a way that the board or the committee would want.
Well, by referring it to the Personnel Board for consideration and review would allow for that particular process.
Okay, just wanted to confirm that.
Yeah,
I
that would
think it's
allow for,
important.
that process.
So you sound like you have a great motion for us, Al.
Yeah. So I move that we refer this, line 63 to 73, to the Personnel Board for review and make consistent with the personnel bylaws, which may
Right.
mean a change to the personnel bylaws.
Do we have a second on that?
Second.
All right, first and seconded. And it'll be motion number 1 for our meeting tonight.
And then the writing, the justification for that would be inconsistency between the Town Manager Act and the personnel bylaws, and changes would be easier to do through the personnel bylaws.
I would agree with that point. I think, like I said, the Town Manager Act is a lot more like enabling legislation, being special legislation.
So that makes it just
How to
easier.
deal with personnel issues and policies and stuff belongs right in that place. Like I said, I'm in talking to a few people myself and looking at some other towns, it sounds like we have some opportunities to maybe consider policies and procedures. that way.
So the chairman of the Board of Selectmen had asked us to do two things in our report. A justification for the change and the change recommendation. So the justification for the change would be it's easier and more timely to do it through the personnel bylaws.
Purview, I think, is what you're
Purview,
trying to
that's a
say.
better description, purview of the, good word, purview, under the purview of the personnel board.
And it's also, we don't want to try to be legislating those
Right.
kind of changes.
Right.
It's completely ineffective. So,
Right.
Any further discussion at this point? Debbie, I know that you're our subject matter expert in that. Hopefully we're saying things that are,
Well, I don't like it, but accept that it's, seems to be the standard, so.
okay?
Oh, the 15-day period.
Yeah, I mean, I would hope that our recommendation would include, I don't know, recommending that the Board of Selectmen do what they can to schedule it much faster than in 15 days.
And I think that the way,
It's not binding,
I think that the way the act's
You know.
written, I think there's some leeway for the board in a policy procedure on how to do that.
It says within,
They'll tell us if there's not.
it says within 15 days, so they can do it in 2, theoretically.
Yes,
Correct.
yep.
No, I think that's very important. So, any further discussion on this point? Seeing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Nobody? Carries unanimously.
What's the next one on that list? Line 118 through 112,
Let's see here.
108 through 112. Right?
Yep,
Yeah.
108 through 112. So this
Sorry
item,
about looking over your shoulder, but
yep, no problem, I appreciate it. So this was, again, related to policies and procedures. Similar discussion point.
I think we went through the same thing on this one. It was recommended to go to the personnel board, so I think we can use the same language that we used on the one before. No need to reinvent the wheel.
Correct.
I had a note for non-union. What was that? We were talking about non-union employees? What's up there?
Yeah, I think there was some discussion related to that because union employees likely have a grievance procedure written into their contract. Non-union people do not have a contract and do
No.
not have that. They're at-will employees.
But their grievance procedure is described in the personnel bylaw,
Correct.
correct?
Correct. There was discussion, I think it was a good point by Donna Marie for that question. There was discussion about that there could be differences, and I think that's something that relates to the manager and the board related to contracts and being consistent. That's something that this act, we can't do anything about that.
Right, it has to be, yeah, so I would suggest that we use the same terminology and say, refer this to the personnel committee.
Yeah,
for
I would
review and
agree.
to be consistent with the Town Manager Act, and the justification would be the same as the last justification, that it would be more expeditious. What was the word you used?
Purview.
In the
Purview.
purview, I like that. So that's my
These
motion.
contrarian ways are coming through.
I like the purview, it's a good word. So that's the motion.
So that's the motion. Do I have it seconded?
Second the motion.
Second the motion. Any further discussion on this one? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Carries.
108.
This is 108 to 112, so that's motion number 2 tonight.
What's the next one down here?
18 set, 19 set. And number 20 from that meeting, committee review lines 114 and 115, annual reviews. We have a pattern here. This goes related to how several things related to HR for the manager in doing the duties in day-to-day management with personnel is spread out a little bit in the way our act is structured.
Where it says in accordance with the personnel bylaws.
Yeah, this is probably a little more complicated because there was a discussion from the committee about how annual reviews can really vary from place to place, and I think, Debbie, I don't know if you can from your personnel board experience, give us a little bit of a maybe insight on how that was going.
Not all
first-
departments are being done in a timely manner, so I think our recommendation should be that all efforts be put towards doing reviews for all employees at the end of each calendar year.
Well, that's part of the bylaw, the personnel bylaw says
Yes.
they're supposed to be done, so, I mean, so it's already stated in the bylaw that they
It
have
is.
to be done, so to restate it again or with more emphasis, does that accomplish the task, or is that, I mean, really,
Well, it's obviously, it's just a recommendation. It's not a, we demand that you do this. But because we know that it's not always done in a timely manner, it's something that we could put in there
Are they done
as a
yearly?
recommendation.
they're done
Are
yearly?
they done
They're
yearly?
supposed to be.
Yes, before the beginning of the year.
So
Are
let
there
me
years when
make,
they're not all done?
Correct.
let me make,
There's years when they're not all done, and
Right.
and then what?
Well, eventually they may be done, but they're not done
Timely.
in a timely manner.
so
Correct.
let me make a
That's
point.
the big thing.
Let me make a point of order about this one, because I think it's important for us to go back quickly and revisit the discussion point, because the current act for the town manager reads that they are to evaluate all town officers and employees under the board in accordance with the personnel bylaws. So the intent there was, it's clearly the manager won't do all those reviews. It's got to be a delegation. Again, another policy or procedure, so I'm not sure if there one exists or not.
The department head or the committee, or the elected committee members are responsible for submission of the reviews, and that's part of the personnel bylaws. So to restate that is,
Redundant, there's no need for it.
that's the word.
I guess the question is this, the language enough that it's an understood that's a delegated responsibility?
Sounds clear English to me.
Okay.
Well, why is it not being done, though? I mean,
That's not relative to the bylaw, that's relative to the people that are doing it.
You're right, they're not following the bylaw, absolutely.
And I'm sure it's different from department to department
Yes.
because of dynamics and stuff.
crystal-
You as a human resources
Right,
professional could school us on that for
That's why.
quite a bit of time.
I mean, it's the responsibility of the town manager to make sure that's done in a timely manner. I mean, that says right here.
Yes.
So he
I guess
can,
maybe we could recommend that it be
You dock their pay
reiterated
or
to the town
something?
manager.
they dock their pay, or we shoot them in the parking lot, or,
It'd be nice to have some repercussion, but there isn't. That's
yeah,
correct.
well, I mean, but the long and short of it is that,
So I'm going to do a point of order because we're kind of getting into the things.
so what we're
that-
going to do is say pass, we don't need to make a change to that one. I mean, it's redundant.
Not a change to the act, it would be a recommendation
Recommendation to what?
I
to,
think we're back to the policy and procedure recommendation.
Yeah, it's-
Are we implementing what's intended in the act properly? Is that a fair
Okay.
statement?
yes, I think that's,
Somebody can put up a motion that we kind of have on a theme or a tempo here, which is good. So, then you want to put up a motion that we
So how does it
refer
read,
this
how does it
as
read
a
in the
pub-
act right now?
So it reads in the act, if you look at number 118, I will read that. It says, it's under the administrative responsibilities of the manager. It says the manager, it starts with J, evaluate all town officers and employees under the board in accordance with the personnel bylaws.
Right.
I mean, that's pretty straightforward.
It's pretty straightforward, yet it could be anything according to the bylaws. It also could be written a little bit clearer and say, speak to, will do annual reviews.
That's in the
It's in the
personnel bylaw.
bylaws.
Right.
Yeah.
Let me take this and then let me refer to this, so that I
No,
can
this
figure
just-
out what this means.
No, this says he's supposed to follow the personnel bylaws. The personnel bylaws are very specific on what has to happen, so it's, you can say you have to follow, I mean, you can say you have to do it every year, but that's redundant. His job is to enforce the personnel bylaws, which say you gotta do it every year.
Right.
So it's,
But, yeah,
it gives him the authority to
To-
make that happen.
and make that happen. Yes, and
So that's
the town manager needs to make that happen.
bingo,
Correct.
and it's already, it says it right there.
Yes.
So
So you-
to Alan's word, redundant is.
No, but,
Well, that's what I'm saying, you're not happy with the
no, I mean,
wording?
I agree that it's redundant. And I would like to make a recommendation that, and maybe it's under what you're talking about, Dan, which is a general policies and procedures
Approach.
recommendation.
All I can tell you as an
so-
elected official, every year from the assistant in the office to everybody, every manager who I was responsible for, it
Gotta
was
review.
done timely. It's up to an elected official to do it, so.
It's
And if it's a
not
manager,
elected officials.
whoever the elected official who that person responds to monitor them to make sure that they do it. So I think there's already a checks and balances in place.
Yeah, I think 114 and 115 is a redundant, if we add anything to it, it becomes redundant.
So I think the point is we don't, to yours, Alan,
We don't need to do anything.
don't do any change to the language.
No,
Just leave it.
If the committee doesn't have a problem, I know Debbie's working on this part of the report for feedback, that we will just address that.
I don't have a problem if somebody made a motion to give the personnel board review over it, and then they'll report it back to their appointing authority, and they can decide whether to present that to the committee or not. But it seems like it's already covered, as Mr. Holman has said a half dozen times.
I would move that we leave this one the way it is. It doesn't make sense to change this at all.
Any further discussion on that matter?
The motion, anybody second the motion?
No, I don't mind referring it just to move on. We've been in this for much too
Yep.
long.
So it's going to be referred. No motion.
Okay. What's the next? This is 27, I knew there was number 27.
Yeah, that's already been motioned already.
Yeah.
Typographical error. I'll
Right.
stop that. And we left 10 is fine.
48 to 50.
48 to 50
Oh,
in the
Mr.
act.
Chairman, just a point of order.
Yes.
As Mr. Holman earlier said, that it needs to be not only the referral, but a reasoning. I guess the reasoning will be that there's concern in the board that it's not what by the managers or by the elected officials. It's whoever the proponent is, maybe they can say why we're making the referral.
Well,
But let whoever is the proponent, Mr. Holman, identify why there's a need to let
Debbie?
the personnel board.
I think
know.
I've made it clear, not all performance or reviews are done on a timely basis for all departments. That's the statement.
That's the statement, so there's the referral.
Will the personnel board also be including something to change the personnel bylaw for some penalty for the manager or the elected official if they don't
Well-
comply with it?
I don't think the personnel board has any authority.
Or you can make a
It's
recommendation.
in the bylaws, but there
Well, you
isn't
can
an
make a
authority.
recommendation to the appointing
Yes.
authority, you certainly
The
can.
personnel board could do that. Maybe we could make a recommendation that they take up that part of the bylaw and see if it works for the town, and if not, consider a change.
Okay, that's what will be said.
That's what will be said.
I mean, that's all it is.
Part of referral,
Not much to it.
passing over.
okay.
So the last one from the August meeting was lines 48 through 50.
professional experience.
Which part says that the manager shall not serve in elected office in the town's government for at least 12 months before his appointment. And Alan, there's some language from you stated felt that there were past selectmen and other individuals in the town that are capable, intelligent, worldly, and great social skills and would be great candidates for a town manager position. You had also pointed out that there's actually a cooling off period requirement for a board of selectmen specifically, correct?
I thought it was for elected officials,
Elected officials, it's
not just the
a
select.
12-month law. I mean,
So interesting enough, there are a few acts that we've looked at in comparison where it doesn't say all elected officials, it just says the Board of Selectmen. So I know that I went back and looked at the Selectmen bylaw, which I'm not, you're much more of an expert at than I would be. And I did see it's clearly in the Selectmen one, but it's hard to figure out if it's in the other ones. So, I think that was the only discussion point. Because I think to your point, some of the folks that potentially could be, or some people who could be in an elected position, that, does that law apply to them or not? So we didn't have, that was a tabled item that I'd like to,
So are we looking to change the language to the manager shall not serve as
I think the only,
the board, as it,
I think it
Board
just
of
changes it
Selectmen?
from elected official to the Board of
to the Board
Selectmen,
of Selectmen?
because they have the executive authority.
Over the,
But I think I would refer back to that, probably something that you'd want to have town council,
Maybe
or the
somebody
select.
else speak, tell me why it would be important for somebody who is not then serving as a Board of Selectmen, not to be appointed by then members of the Board of Selectmen to that position. I just want to hear other people's thoughts on why there might be a concern.
So my thoughts, and then I'll let the rest of the committee go down the line, is that, like I said, you're the manager's boss.
Right, it's a conflict of
So
interest.
clearly it's a
for
conflict
sure.
of interest. And to
Yeah.
your point, that cooling off period is clearly stated in the Board of Selectmen.
So the town treasurer, for example, he or she could be appointed the town manager.
That's the question, is can somebody like that individual in that elected position, are they explicitly excluded because of a state statute or not?
That would be a question for council, I would suspect to answer. I don't know that I have an answer to that one.
I don't either, and he said, I
So
think it just,
employees of the town manager, you know, could be or should be considered, but not the
Correct.
boss of the
the
town.
three, in our case, three town
Right.
Board of Selectmen cannot. It's very clear. I don't think we need to belabor it that much, I think we need to.
I think we
visit
just
this.
leave it, I think we need to leave this one alone.
Well,
It describes the exclusion of all elected officials, not just limited to selectmen. And unless there's a reason, a logical reason why we should allow an elected official in less than 12 months take that position, I'm not sure that it's worth making a change to, in my mind.
Well, just to play devil's advocate, I can understand the Board of Selectmen being excluded, but I don't know why any other elected official should be excluded. I think some of the concern that I read about is that people don't know the person who's running it, or maybe they don't have town connections. If you're a leader within the community and you have shown yourself capable, and 3 members of the Board of Selectmen feel you're the best qualified candidate, why shouldn't that person be appointed to that position?
Yeah, I'll join you on the devil's advocate. What if you're an elected cemetery commissioner?
Well,
What kind of relevance would that be excluding you from being, if you're one of those people that you've done that because of your service to the community and you are a.
Right, so I don't think it should say managers should be excluded. I don't think anyone other than the Board of Selectmen should be excluded from the town manager position.
right, I agree.
Agreed. So we need a little bit of a motion.
So the motion would be, the manager shall not serve in the office of selectman in the town's government for at least, that's what you're suggesting, Alan?
So,
Well, I'm suggesting a short period of time because I think there are qualified individuals sometimes.
Well, this excludes, this only, changing that to office of selectman excludes only the selectman and
Yes.
allows anybody else.
Well, as the rest of the committee is verbalized, yeah, I'd be in favor of that.
So I'll make that as a motion, so that way we can get on with it.
I'll second that motion.
can help me with the numbers to make sure.
So, the question,
Yes.
so there's a vote on that.
Any further discussion on this point? I think we've beat it out. So, seeing that, all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Got one opposed. Motion carries by majority.
Al and I don't agree on everything.
Yeah, we've heard that a few times.
Had some good arguments over the years. Done, so we can,
Done.
so
the
what we
24th
can,
is done.
what's the justification for that? We need to put together a,
Potential conflict, since again, even though they're independently elected, they are in a sense colleagues.
But-
So again, and I don't mean to make any inference, the selectmen vote how they feel, he or she feels best for the town. But the inference of impropriety, I think it shouldn't be allowed.
well, so the justification for changing it to selectmen only would be to maximize the number of available candidates for the job of town manager,
Internal.
internally. That'd be the justification for the change, and then the change would be to that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I feel it gives the ability of the community to use its own talent
Yeah.
before it uses the
Mr.
talent.
Holman, and also for the potential for inference of impropriety, that someone who just left that office.
Oh, yeah, well, that's why we're saying change it to just the selectmen. The justification for opening up to everybody else is, it increases the potential job pool.
Correct.
Thank you. What's the next ones?
Okay, that we finish up.
So what's our next
Our next item,
list of things we need to talk about? No. Look at your list of stuff that we went through.
I think we're
Mark.
done.
No, we have some other ones we have to look
We
at.
have
Be there,
the-
Mr. Co-chair.
59 through 164. See what I'm saying?
Yes.
Might as well talk to that one too.
And what about, are we going,
Which one did we miss? Did we miss another one?
are we on the 20, what are we on? Are we on the 24th minutes where we
Yes,
have-
we're still on the 24th minutes. We're cleaning up
going-
our tabled items.
Yeah, now we're going to go through the other line items that we held and talk about
Okay, good.
each one of those. And the next one would be what? You have them highlighted on one of those.
Yeah.
Where's the one? 37? Is there one before 37?
I think we voted, we motioned not to leave that alone. That's
37?
already been motioned.
37?
Yep.
Yes, okay, so we'll leave that alone.
145 to 146
Okay.
was one we did not
Okay.
table.
Okay, receive and act on questions and complaints filed with the board or manager and inform the board of the status of the resolution. At item S, right?
Correct, this is item S.
Say it again, this is 145 and 146?
46, right, it's a S. Receive and act on questions and complaints filed with the board or the manager and inform the board of the status of the resolution.
So in the meeting minutes from 8:24, we had a lengthy discussion about this.
Yep.
And the bottom line said we were going to ask the Board of Selectmen to look at new ways of direct communication and access to them from the community, either email or something to that.
So that would really be a policy issue through the board, not a modification to the,
So it was under recommendation for BOS. and
yeah,
their-
yeah. So the justification would be increase the methodology for communication with the citizen.
In tracking.
And, okay. And the change would be a recommendation of a policy change, right?
Yeah, I don't think we're recommending any
Change-
change to the act.
Okay, so the motion, I'll make the motion that we make a motion to recommend to the Board of Selectmen a policy covering increased methodology and communication with the citizens. What was the rest of it?
this,
as a policy. Does that make sense? Or did I miss something?
we have this.
And the justification for it would be increased methodology
Yep.
for informing the public.
He did that,
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
So, yeah. We have
Okay,
this
in the form of a motion.
recommendation so
You got one already there?
far. No, it's not, actually.
right? I think we discussed that.
Yeah, we're going
Just
back to the
did
meeting
that.
minutes. That one's already done.
No, I don't think that's in
That one's
No, we
done.
haven't had taken
No,
action on
we
it.
haven't-
Okay.
Yeah, so that.
Thank you.
So that,
That's what we're doing. We're trying to cover the ones we don't have.
yeah, we're going to go through them line by line. Okay, so my motion is to recommend to the Board of Selectmen a modification of the policy, or a recommendation to an additional policy to improve communications, methodology of communication to the citizens.
Because prior to the town manager, we were able to pick up a phone or selectman email that we now do not have. If we want to get to selectmen, we have to go through the executive secretary to
Well,
the
their,
town manager.
well, their emails
I don't know,
are
I don't know how you did it before there was a town manager, because the selectmen generally aren't sitting in the office during normal business hours. So you know what you do? You pick up the phone and call their home, or you'd see them down, the coffee shop, which you still can do. So I'm not sure that somehow makes it more effective for citizens to communicate to the
I
selectmen.
think they wanted to be able to email. I think the issue was they want to be able to email the selectmen, and currently
Okay,
you
so
can't.
you make a recommendation that they utilize social media to make themselves more available to the community.
Well, there was also discussion, some prior selectmen said they were here an hour before, or they set up once a month
No one
Coffee
came in.
hours.
coffee hour with the citizens, so things like that.
I think this was, the discussion really came down to is, I don't think we're gonna be changing,
No,
I don't see a change to the act.
No,
But I think it comes down to, this was a discussion about communication and access to the elected officials.
I think it's just a recommendation to review the policies of communication
Yeah.
to any increase they can to communicate or notify the citizenry. There may be none.
Yep.
Yep.
Is that your motion?
I think that's my
Because
motion.
it's a recommendation.
It's a recommendation, a motion, whatever you want to call it. Motion, yeah, that's a motion.
I will second the motion.
And the justification is increased methodology for communication
The
with
citizens.
No, just to increase accessibility.
accessibility. Okay, I like that.
Communication
Thank you.
with the citizens.
Right.
Accessibility, I like that. That's better. It's a bigger word.
With the voters. Okay.
Done.
So,
What's the next
that
one?
one's done.
Now we got 159.
No, I think that one's already done.
Oh, we did
Oh,
159?
back up for a second. Almost done. Hey, back up. We got him.
You made a motion.
You made a motion.
Yeah, it had been
It
voted on.
hasn't been seconded.
It was seconded,
Yep,
so now we need to vote.
yeah.
Everybody in favor?
I,
Opposed? Nothing. Motion carried. So before we get going, I think we have the rest of those.
We have a bunch more that we could do.
No, I think I'm going to go back to the meeting minutes from that month, because I don't think that we have anything left open.
Well, no, we've got a bunch that we still have to look at. I mean, we
Correct.
talked about, we put holds on, so
Let's go through the holds.
let's go through them.
I think at this point,
156 through something, I can't remember.
I don't think that was held.
budget.
156 was... Where's the list you had highlighted?
I apologize.
That one, that's the list. Keep going. The other
Yeah,
one.
but, no, you gotta go to the meeting minutes, I apologize.
The 159 through 164?
Yeah, that's what I thought, 159 through 64. What does it say? Prepare and present annually to the board for its review, approval, and recommendation for Finance Committee detailed budgetary estimates of amounts necessary for the administrative style town boards. Officers, committees, divisions, departments under the jurisdiction of the board or manager for the ensuing fiscal year, including both capital and operating expenses. The manager shall present a requested balanced budget to the Finance Committee.
So again, referring to the meeting minutes, we had a very lengthy discussion about this. Everything from Al Holman said the finance committee could have the information, prepared sooner, maybe it could be published He noted that for 25 years, he offered the Board of Selectmen space twice a month in the town crier for any information they'd like to disseminate. Planning, for
I'll
a
go-
5-year capital expenditure and mechanisms to get the budget ahead of time.
Yep.
I
that's a
said it might
quick
be
summary.
nice to see the budget readily available in print or online before the annual town meeting, so voters have a better opportunity to review and questions and votes appropriately.
Sometimes it isn't completed until literally days.
Right.
The day.
The
Right.
printer has completed it days before, if not
Yep.
the day of.
Yeah. There's always edits coming in as you guys are sending them. So I'm going to refer everybody quickly because we had language in that comes from, if you go to today's meeting minutes on the line 209, were the items that, because I know that from that meeting minute, I had taken an action item to go out and
Yeah,
look
you
at
did.
language.
Right.
So if you go into your meeting minutes, line 209, it's the last page, and it says, addition to section 5, financial responsibilities of the town manager, which is section 5 of our act, and there are 4 bullets to look at and have a discussion about. And really, this was more of an issue about forecasting. And to the point that Alan's bringing up, you know, we're gonna live in the world where that's gonna constantly change and get iterated right down to a town meeting. The discussion here was, do you consider other things that will actually put more of a planning focus earlier in the year? Maybe that'll help with things or not, so. So line 209, the first bullet is the proposed budget shall detail all of an estimated revenue from all sources and all proposed expenditures, including debt service for the previous, current, and ensuing 5 fiscal years. The second one had to do with the proposed budget shall detail all estimated expenditures for current operations during the ensuing fiscal year, detailed by agency, department, committee, purpose, and position. In addition to the town manager shall prepare and maintain a written proposed capital improvement budget for the ensuing fiscal year and 5-year forecast and include both as part of a proposed annual budget. The third item was for the purposes of preparing the budget, the ensuing fiscal year, the town manager shall include an estimate of revenues to be collected and free cash available at the close of the current fiscal year, including estimated balances and special accounts. And then the fourth one was the town manager shall report on the estimated funds required to be levied and raised by taxation to defray all expenses and liabilities of the proposed budget, together with an estimate of the tax rate necessary to raise such amount and include the information in the proposed budget. So I think we may be stating things that may be current practice that are already happening in our town government in the way that the Board of Selectmen's been operating. The question is, you know, are we stepping into what the manager's doing or the selectmen? And is, like I said, I would actually refer to the 2 selectmen at the table that have more than a decade of experience combined in how this would play out and whether we should include that.
Well, quite honestly, the fourth one is something that happens as a process continually. I mean, the fixing of the tax rate is as a result of a lot of different things, and all that stuff happens automatically that's not under the control of the town manager. You know, the purpose of preparing a budget for ensuing fiscal year, the town manager shall include estimates of revenue to be collected and free cash. That's part of the process. But when all the smoke clears, the selectmen have the responsibility of the budget. So that could be asked of the town manager to do, and that would be a policy issue. The selectmen, as a point of policy, could say, gee, I want a 5-year plan, a rolling 5-year plan. They could do that. But I'm not sure you want to put it in I'm not sure that's something that would go into the Town Manager Act. But
So
that's
let me ask members of the committee, other than the 2 selectmen here tonight, prior selectmen, why is that a concern? Has the Town Manager Act, have there been instances since it's been passed that somehow people feel that the town manager is the one that creates the budget and the selectmen don't have any control or input in that process?
Yeah, no, I think that specific example, I think it's just saying the manager's doing that on behalf of the board.
No, that's,
So it's probably what they're doing anyways.
that's exactly what they do. The Board of Selectmen have the responsibility. No budget is authorized or approved by the selectmen until they do it. It used to be the process, the selectmen sat down with every department, took 2 or 3 Saturdays, and we went through each budget with each.
Well, you meet with FinCom first.
Well, we met with FinCom, and then we sat down, we understood what our free cash was, what our tax rate, where we going to be with taxes, 2.5 levy. We're always at the 2.5 levy.
Don't forget the assessors also.
Right, and then we sat down and said, okay, here's what we can do, and then we went through the budget.
So for me, it'd be easy to understand why there's a need to even address this if, whether people in the community or somebody here in this table can identify where maybe this interfered or why there's the perception that the selectmen weren't involved in the past several budgets since there's been a town manager running the town.
So I can only bring forward from what I know from the information that's come to this committee is if you go back to our original starting point when we started talking about the town manager, and one of the things that actually was very heavily identified in the profile that MRI did in our search for our new town manager was the issue of tax rate and that role and function of the manager. So actually, that's one of the places that it was captured. And I think that was captured from, the best of my knowledge, from a history standpoint of what I know, because I did attend both meetings that MRI, or at least one of the meetings that MRI did with the community, was they were in the process of collecting information both for that public meeting, and then they met with people individually and they accepted emails. So my point is that whole issue of tax rate does show up in one of our earlier packages about.
Dan, I don't understand what the concern is, because honestly, the select persons in this community can be everybody from retired individuals, from the candlestick maker to the President of the United States. And everybody brings different practical and professional skills. So I'm not quite sure. If somehow they're looking for somebody who's a town manager that has, qualifications as far as tax or whatever, I'm not sure why that's a concern. Why is that a problem? Or why are we looking to change it somehow, the way it references right now? What's the underlying concern? I don't understand.
I think the underlying concern from a lot of the voters was with the town manager, the department heads met with the town manager, not but with the selectmen as in years prior to
Right.
having a town manager. And so, one citizen who actually wrote in today said, having witnessed our tax rates nearly double with no apparent quell to major spending, it provides us with cautious hope that you would consider a request of the town manager to provide for 3 to 5 year plan. So citizens are feeling their taxes are increasing with the town manager. Possibly there is, I'm going to say there's influence, or there's, now ultimately, as we've heard many times, the buck stops with the Board of Selectmen. I think that the voters are concerned that there's no 3 to 5 year plan, and from the town manager, who now receives the budget that then sends it to so maybe that's a miscommunication, but that is where it all stemmed from. Whereas the way it worked before was they would meet directly with the 3 selectmen.
So first of all, there is a capital acquisition committee
Right.
that has, 5-year, 10-year plans for the community. And I can't imagine a manager who talks to the town manager and then doesn't also talk to the selectmen about his concerns. And I'll bet you $1 if you talk to the prior 2 now retired or selectmen who have left the office since this act's been in place, I know because I've had conversation that citizens, in fact, some citizens in this committee would approach them and talk with them about their concerns, irrespective of talking to the town manager. So I don't see how somehow the selectmen are in a cocoon that citizens or department heads, after they speak to the town manager, can't say, dang it, I'm gonna go talk to the selectmen. So really, what are we changing? I mean, you're gonna put something here that's gonna,
Point of order, we give
Yeah,
Chairman
you're
second.
a little, there's a little more to it than you think. First of all, the Board of Selectmen do not set the tax rate. Board of Assessors do the evaluation. And if anybody wants to know, it looks like it's probably going to go up 8% next year. Even if we keep the tax and we don't raise any money, your property values are going to go up 8%, you're going to be taxed on it. So that has nothing to do with the Board of Selectmen and Town Manager. That's the Board of Assessors. The treasurer collector is responsible for the treasury of the town. That is not the Board of Selectmen. All the Board of Selectmen through the town manager do, and we do meet with the town managers, we have for the last 10 years. We sit and we develop a budget that's consistent with the needs of the town. The parameters are very limited, and the personnel board, the finance committee also has a tremendous amount of authority through this process by town bylaw. So the Board of Selectmen really working in conjunction with the finance committee. We do not, as to use a bad term, dictate to the finance committee. It is their final vote that recommends the budget, even though the Board of Selectmen sign off on the warrant. And then the real result is the warrant goes to town meeting and the voters make the decision on the budget. So there are many, many parties that are involved. Town manager is coordinating it, but you have treasurer collector, you have town accountant, you have Board of Assessors, you have finance committee and the Board of Selectmen are all in that process together. The other component is you have other elected boards that have sovereign authority through their elected process. I use the Board of Health. I use the school committee. They all have their own process, which the town manager and the Board of Selectmen do not have any ability to go in and affect or change. So it's very, very complex. It's not like the town manager sits and puts it all together.
I think I appreciate that input and that clarification. It's very helpful. I know from my perspective, trying to understand it on a year-over-year basis has been difficult, and keeping track of it and following it is challenging because of the complexity you just outlined. I know, like I said, that was brought up as just one citizen communication we've just gotten about, I think, the forecast part of it. And I actually go back to I look back at the multi-board that was put in place to address the school funding Chapter 70 issues. And, maybe one of these items being brought forward is something that's kind of similar to that from a town perspective.
We have an elected board called Capital Budget Committee that creates the budget and the 5-year plan for the
Capital expenditures.
And they impact that aspect of it.
They're elected.
So the 5-year plan is really driven by capital needs. We project the operational budget to increase at a certain rate, but the capital is really what drives the budget. Because when you affect something at $300,000, $400,000 of equipment, that's a major impact to the budget. So
Typically, the expenditure of the Prop 2.5 goes just to eat up the cost of living and the expense increases. So, I mean,
No, I know we have a very tight budget. There's not a lot of discretionary spending available.
my only point is there are many players
Yeah.
involved in the budget, both elected, appointed, and many elected, such as Board of Assessors and Treasurer
Is the capital committee or capital budget committee, did you say they're elected?
They
Or
are,
appointed?
They're appointed.
They're
I'm sorry.
appointed by the Board of Selectmen?
Yes.
Okay.
And there are, I think there are 3 members now, there should be 5. We'd love to people involved. But anytime there's a capital acquisition or recommendation over, I think it's $25,000. I think we raised it, it might be 50 now, but it goes to them and they make a recommendation on it. They also work on a 5-year plan as to what the capital needs are going out for a period of 5 years. We have Mr. Chairman, we have a flow chart we could show you that shows the capital plan on a 5-year basis. It's in the book form, so I can provide you a copy. It's really easy. And it shows in year 5, we know we need this truck in 4, 3, so we manage our debt. So as debt leaves, we hope we can acquire something and not affect the rate by when the debt goes, we acquire something.
and they're kind of the treasurer,
There are probably 25 to 30 people directly involved in the budget.
and the treasurer collector is always looking for better bonding rates.
Well, that's his authority.
Yeah, I mean, he's always looking for a better rate to reduce our cost of borrowing.
I mean, and I understand where the committee was going, Mr. Chairman. I just want you to understand there are a lot of components to that budget process. And it's hard to affect one person to assume that they do that much to it because everybody plays a part. But
Yeah.
the town manager to date did kind of coordinate, but doesn't have the authority to affect.
So I think that was really what the discussion's been driven to is do you have to formalize that manager's coordination? To your point, we've probably learned a lot in the first manager being here of what they can and cannot coordinate and what the committees do. The forecast, again, I go back to the example of the multi-board as an example of, I think a lot of folks, and I think that email correspondence that just came in was another example of, hey, I think, people are looking from a forecasting statement.
It's available. Also, people can go on the website and you can access the financial status of the town. The town accountant provides that as public documentation.
Yeah.
So it's all public.
So to make sure I fully understand it, so basically, they're appointed by the selectmen, those committees, the capital budget committee is appointed by the
Only
selectmen.
capital budget committee,
Okay.
finance committee is appointed, elected, and appointed by law.
Yeah, that's got a mix.
Yeah.
And then the other person is the treasurer collector that plays a big role in that. Those are the three key players.
And board of assessors. They are probably most
Most important?
important.
They're the collectors, they're the setters
They
and-
do the assessment of the property valuation, which affects the taxes.
Which truly affects the tax rate.
And they're elected officials.
Yes.
Zero.
Yeah. I do recall, and Al had reminded us about, there was a town meeting several years back where there was a proposal on the floor about making the treasurer collector appointed versus elected. And we all know that did not succeed. So,
What's the significance of that? I'm not sure.
I don't know, I'm just
I
saying,
would,
it was just a statement just from
I would
I
say,
needed the history to make sure I understood.
I would say that items number 159 through 164 are pretty much descriptive of what's there, and I'm not sure that requesting a 5-year plan is going to make any modifications to anything going on.
Well, there's already a committee that's formed for that purpose.
On the capital side.
Capital side,
Yeah.
right.
So I'd actually recommend, Dan, if you'd like to serve, I'll make a motion.
That's good, I like that.
Well, there are two spots open.
That'll teach you.
I didn't,
That teaches you, there's a lesson learned there.
No good deed.
no,
Is there a second to that?
Very good. I would think that, I mean,
I-
I don't think any changes to that are going to change the process at all. I think all that stuff is a matter of public record. The capital budget committee is a 5-year plan. The tax rates that we have don't even cover our expense increases, the normal day-to-day expenses and cost of living. So I'm not sure that that's going to accomplish anything.
so I guess I want to see if anybody else on the board has a question about that. You
Well-
said, other than the planning perspective, that's the only thing I would say.
This, I mean, the other place this comes from is the school committee now has the
50%.
the 5-year plan.
Mhm.
So there's visibility to the school, needs and expenditures. So from that perspective, the town at least has some.
And that's 50% of the budget, is that right?
Oh, it's larger than that.
The school?
54.
Larger? Okay.
Yeah.
So we have visibility to that, so there's that piece.
Well, we have no control over that.
Correct. But we have that piece of information in order to
Well,
potentially put
We also get a very
together-
important piece of information when you get your tax bills. It tells you when the Prop 2.5, when they're going to be no longer in effect, and it gives you a better idea when your tax rate might go down or when other capital acquisitions might occur. So there's, I guess I'm trying to say, there's many areas where somebody who's interested can see the finances of the town.
Yeah. I think the only point that I would, like I said, go back to is how does a manager in that role? Because it sounds like most of these things still reside back in appointed, elected, and the Board of Selectmen's hands primarily.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, if you would like to, the next meeting, or I can provide you with a copy of their budget plan and last year's financial plan for the town. You can see what the town manager's coordination activities are. You'll have it available.
So
Yeah,
I just want to make the community aware, the current town manager will be a guest at the Upton Men's Club the third Wednesday of this month at 7 o'clock at the Rose Garden. And he'll be there to answer any questions that anybody in the community has about the town finances. So if anybody's interested, show up on the second floor of the Rose Garden at 7 o'clock.
Thank you for that commercial announcement.
It's informative.
So I think in getting some feedback from the chair, I would ask that we just table
Leave that
this
alone.
particular item until we have a discussion with the board.
Okay, what's the next one?
Any other further concerns about that?
Have you got a list of the ones we went over? I bet you do.
From the minutes?
Yeah.
But, yeah, the last one.
You had 159 to 164.
Yes.
What's the next one?
That's tabled for the selectmen discussion.
Are we
Transition period, we already, sorry, we do have to vote on that one.
Which one?
It was from the August meeting,
What numbers?
lines 187 through 191, which was just the
187.
initial transition period,
187.
191.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
There's no longer transition period, their language will disappear.
Yeah, so we just
eventually.
take, yeah, that, yeah.
I believe I go back to that in July, that was one of the things that I think we've already, as a committee, taken a motion and
Taking that out.
deleted, so we can
Right.
skip past that.
And then the last one, what we have one at 209, where we were going to add to that 5-year review of the Town Manager Act. Recommend that we have a 5-year review to the Board of Selectmen.
Yes, please.
Correct?
Correct, we got a couple ones, yep. So that's one that'll get us through that, so.
Well,
Do-
Are
do
we
we
going
have
back to
line-
this 123 to 125?
123, well,
I
okay.
had proposed some verbiage, and I wanted to make a change.
Oh, 123, we didn't look at that.
That's already, and we already have, oh, we don't have that motion.
So the proposed language
Right.
change, I wanted to make a change to the proposed language change and take out this charter, because that actually does not, we're not a charter. So to see that all laws, bylaws, and other town meeting votes and directives of the Board of Selectmen that require enforcement by him or officers or employees subject to his direction and supervision are faithfully carried out. So I'm making a motion to strike this charter and
Strike that
add
at
that
section M
proposed
and add,
So,
language.
first
replace
one
it with
quick,
yours.
is that, I have a motion, do I have a second to
123 to
that?
125.
That's a motion.
Right?
It's already been seconded.
Okay, seconded. Any other further discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Carries unanimously. So then we go actually to the language itself.
So
So
why
this
are we,
is 123 through 125.
and why are we changing it? We have what you recommend, what you recommended, which we already have. So the reason why we want to make that change.
I believe we got in quite a discussion back in that meeting about lawful goals and policies proposed by the board. And I think this was trying to be more direct about when the board gives the manager instructions that they're
Yeah.
just to do it.
Exactly.
So I think that was the reason for that was clarity, basically.
Okay, so that would be the reason. The justification for it is clarification.
More direct language.
More direct language and clarification on what's the responsibilities. That's pretty easy. Make sense? Or do you want to add a big word to that one, Alan?
I wouldn't use clarification, maybe clarity,
Clarity?
Yeah, clarity.
Clarity, okay.
but I'm fine if you want to say clarification.
That's a shorter word, though. I mean. Okay, so we're set with that one.
So we have to
Done.
vote on that one and be done with
Yeah,
it.
No, we already voted on
voted.
it, and the reason why,
We just-
Okay,
we
that one's
voted,
voted
we're
on.
just
Thank
putting
you.
the reason.
right, so are there any ones,
So we got
other
that.
ones we missed?
No, please.
Transition period. Okay, so are we proposing verbiage for the every 5-year?
Oh, yeah, just,
We need verbiage for the.
We need-
We do
So
not
I
have
would
that.
propose the Board of Selectmen shall appoint a current Upton resident-led committee to review the Town Manager Act as established by Chapter 391 of the Acts of 2008 every 5 years.
that works for me. I'll make that. You made the motion, I'll second it.
This is the 5-year review.
Yeah.
So we have a motion seconded, so we're gonna have some discussion on that. I have one actual question for the people proposing it, is who are the people doing that review? And do we need to be?
Oh, well, it's appointed, that would be appointed by the Board of Selectmen. It's a committee. Any committee is appointed by the Board of Selectmen.
So, can you just read that one more time?
Let's read it one more
The
time.
Board of Selectmen shall appoint a current Upton resident-led committee to review the Town Manager Act as established by Chapter 391 of the Acts of 2008 every 5 years.
who may make recommendations to the Board of Selectmen.
No, that's good. We want to add that, who may make recommendations to the Board of Selectmen. So it's very clear.
Probably need to know how many members are going to be in this committee. Are we going to have 3 members? Are we going to have 13 members? Should be an odd
A
number.
minimum of 5, not to exceed 9. An odd number.
I'd even say 5 to 7.
Well,
There are 9 members of the current committee.
Yeah.
Was it a challenge to get 9 citizens? Because it has been, unfortunately, for a variety of reasons, to have a full, crew here every week.
So-
I think
That's true. You,
You're gonna miss a few people all
Make
the
it,
time.
yeah, so
Yeah.
5 to 7, yeah, 5 or 7. 5 or 7. You don't want 6. You want an odd number.
I make a motion for 5,
I have a second
or
for that?
suggest it be 5. We haven't even,
if you have it higher, you have a bigger chance of diversity.
sure, 7. How about 7? Is that okay?
Friendly amendment?
7.
5 to 7. Which are 5 to 7?
7
Let me
members.
say-
We're picking a
He's
number.
saying 7, picking a
Up
number.
to, how about
Okay.
this? How about
So
this?
7, and then this is all going to the Board of Selectmen, who then are going to read it, and they might say, well, we want to change it.
Well,
Correct?
they can, or first they're going to send it to council to see what we've done, if they buy
Right.
into it.
So we'll put 7 and, okay. So the motion is the Board of Selectmen shall appoint a current Upton resident-led committee to review the Town Manager Act established by Chapter 391 of the Acts of 2008 every 5 years, who may make recommendations to the Board of Selectmen. The committee shall be made up of 7 current residents.
Sounds good. I'll second that motion.
We have it seconded.
Should we say up to 7 members, just in case there
It
is an
could be
interest in
even,
the
though.
community?
An odd number.
Even.
It's got to be an odd
Problem could be
number.
4 people, then you
Yeah.
gotta leave
Okay.
it. That's the
Well,
problem.
you're saying they have to have 7. I hope that
Yeah.
there's interest.
Well, yeah, we want
No,
maybe
no.
up to
It'd be nice
7.
to say up to. Just can't be an.
An odd number up to 7. An odd number up to 7.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? An odd number up to 7?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's fine.
Yeah.
Makes
That's a
sense.
friendly amendment, I guess.
I think we also want to make sure that this is publicized in a timely manner and open to the public
So I
for
think,
What,
volunteers.
the committee?
The committee.
I'll
So-
do a point order on that. I
Yeah.
think that's gonna have to just go through the normal way that committee processes
Okay.
are solicited, so I think we're
Yeah.
just gonna
Okay.
have to let that happen. So just the 5-year committee, so we have that motion and seconded.
Seconded, so
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
I,
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
got a lot done today.
We are getting a ton done. We're having like we did on the
Got a lot,
27th and the 24th.
got a lot done. That should make,
Okay, hold on.
We also did talk about under that 209, add language that states there shall be a screening committee formed to include citizens as part of the selection process for a new town manager. I would propose the Board of Selectmen shall create a search committee of Upton residents to assist in the selection of candidates for the position of town manager. The candidates shall be persons of demonstrated ability with administrative experience in public management or business administration who are qualified by reason of education experience for the position of town manager. The search committee shall recommend to the Board of Selectmen a minimum of 3 qualified candidates. After receiving the recommendation of the search committee, the board shall appoint a town manager from the recommended candidates. Provided, however, that the board shall not be required to appoint any of the recommended candidates, they may request the search committee continue the screening process or shall appoint a new search committee to continue a restart the search. This is verbiage,
So it's on line 209.
Right.
It's in our meeting minutes.
boilerplate from Town of West Newbury's Town Manager Act.
So if we go to our meeting minutes that we're currently holding from the 14th,
no, we took them out.
no, it's in the minutes.
Yeah, it's in the 14th minutes.
It's in
No,
the
we
minutes.
took the stuff you recommended out.
And it's on item number 10. It's on the meeting minutes.
We,
So that has line 209, it talks about the appointment of town manager. It's the same thing, Donna Marie, other than it just has the same language. It just changes the search committee of 5 Upton residents to assist in the selection of candidates.
Right.
So it has a number. Same thing, it's where it came from. So that really has to go with pretty much memorializing what the process that was done. I don't think it would change a bit from how the process was just done.
All right, it's all right
Hold
here.
on, a point of order, we have,
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
this year you haven't included the possibility of a professional search firm, because this year we hired, it was very effective. So by restricting to just citizens of Upton, that search, you're denying the Board of Selectmen the opportunity to hire a professional agency to do the search.
Well,
No.
it says up to
Oh,
5
oh,
residents
hold
to
on.
assist.
point of order, I think, I want to clarify quick, because the way the language does state as proposed, it's just the screening committee. I think, to your point, I would agree that
She used the word search, I did.
yeah, that I believe that the selectman still has the full authority, they can hire a search committee, professional executive search. Yeah,
Right.
Just
exactly.
one clarity, thank you.
Yep, absolutely. I think this was just trying to memorialize what was done.
Well, the paragraph does say search, though.
So
So you're
it's
changing
screening.
the wording to, from search to screening, right? In what
Yeah.
is in that?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Friendly amendment to change that to screening? One last reading, Debbie, since you got that HRI?
You changed it to screening, right?
Right.
Yes, so the third, it says the Board of Selectmen shall create a screening committee. To the point of the discussion we just had.
And then you have to change it again, the second sentence.
It's in there one more
It's-
time
there are a
again.
couple
Search
times.
screening.
Right. Oh, so here.
It's in there a third time, screening.
Yeah.
So all searches are changed to screening.
Okay, in the 5 times, so did you get it all 5 times?
Yep.
Okay.
So anybody have any questions about that? Like I said, that's line 209, in addition to section 3 appointment. Any further discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None, motion carries. Okay, guys, we're getting close.
Did we catch them all?
Let's see.
So item number 10 is the last thing we're on in our meeting minutes from the 14th, which is where we've done a couple of them. We've done line 209, in addition to section 3 for the appointment, line 209, in addition to section 5 responsibilities, which we tabled. And then we had 2 more sections, which were 209, the insert elected officials of the town of Upton section, which the intent, as stated in the minutes,
That's this.
is not to change.
That's
No,
this.
that's your hair. Is not to change
No,
anything about our elected officials, but to just state essentially what those are. So this is really a no change to the government kind of proposal. Whether it belongs here or not is, I guess, the good
I
discussion.
don't believe it belongs there.
So again, the intent is not to change anything. There is a paragraph at the end, Al, to your point, that I think is important to be read, which says, because really the list is just what we do, right? The first item just states what's obviously the general laws, the sovereign rights of elected boards and committees and commissions. And then the last one has a sentence on it, or 2 sentences, says notwithstanding the election by voters of the town officers named in the section such and such, such officer shall be available to the town manager and board of selectmen for consultation, conference, discussion on matters related to the officers' respective offices. No different than what we do already. The only issue here is at the end, it says the town manager may require all such officials to prepare reports necessary for the administration of town government. So that was really a discussion point of the manager's the day-to-day person for the selectmen on day-to-day business, because they're not operating outside of committee. Do we consider adding this and including that section to help for operational efficiencies, improved communication? So that was why that was brought forward. if there's anything in there that I don't, that is, implies a change in it, I think that's not the intent of this proposal.
I'm not disputing the accuracy of the, except for the town, that one section, the accuracy of what it represents, but it's, the Town Manager Act is not the place, not a place to describe the job description of the Board of Selectmen or the FinCom or financial responsibilities or the powers and duties of the Board of Selectmen or the elected officials of the town of Upton.
So
I
I'm
mean-
going to make a quick discussion point because I think it fits in with meeting with the selectmen. If everybody in the committee would be willing to table these two items in 10 to our discussion with the Board of Selectmen, I think that'd be very appropriate.
I think that's a good idea.
Because I really think we do need to understand the mechanics of that from the people that are doing this job every day, that are elected, that are serving our community.
I
I see. That sounds good.
mean, I don't believe it, I don't believe this particular information needs to be in the Town Manager Act. So that's my opinion. So,
Yeah. That's where I have a difference of opinion. I think that,
that's called democracy.
exactly.
I may make a comment?
Have,
That
Yep.
maybe an opportunity, there was a question at last town meeting, as you probably would all recall, regarding our annual report, our annual report is, and how we have particular.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a recommendation that he come up to the
Yeah,
table so
sorry.
the citizens can see who's talking?
so Steve, if you can come up. So
Sure.
Selectman Matalian joining us. Thank you for,
Should be noted,
So I think this might be an opportunity regarding the annual report, if we decide that we do need to overhaul the annual report, as we have particular items that are no longer going to be on the revolving fund. They won't show up each year in our warrant. So when they don't show up each year in the warrant, it gives us an opportunity to report more accurately to the citizens. So this may be an opportunity where you may want to draw that out together. So the question is, do you want to make that under the responsibility of the town manager? Just something to think about going forward, if you don't have to weigh in on that now.
yeah, I think, like I said, I'm going to probably recommend our committee because we've had a good night and I'll look a little tired, but I think that's a good point. I will bring that up, and I think, as we had said at the last meeting, our intent is to convene a working session, a posted meeting between the Board of Selectmen and this committee to go through these last two items, if that makes
It
sense.
was brought up again, and that's assuming that, and maybe not everyone is of the same opinion, but that is assuming that we think that we need to include more information in our annual report. Which I,
Okay.
for one, think that we, especially with those who don't want to show up on the warrant. So it's like they're going to be gone, and they're not good. So you do have to have, I believe, you have the opportunity there, and responsibility for that. So that was my.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So,
how many people in here read the town report? Cover to cover?
yeah,
Good.
Someone-
it's always after the meeting, though. That's what I don't like about it.
Well, you get it at the election, so,
I know.
after the town meeting.
In order of precedence, I'm going to take my discretion as chairman and table these two items unless there's anybody think that we should do something different.
That's
Other
fine.
than that, we are close to being done.
No, well, yeah.
We're getting there. Oh, man. Can we change the Wi-Fi in town hall so it doesn't ask you every hour you have to get free public internet? So we're through item number 3. Item number 4 is opportunity for the public to address the committee and review correspondence from the public. We did get a letter that Donna Marie did quote. Without Debbie or Deb Tata here to help keep me organized, we didn't get that fully distributed, so we will do that to the committee. I think everybody's seen it come to the TMA address anyways. So anybody in the public that has taken the time to see us tonight, come up and want to talk or discuss and bring up anything.
I think we have a young lady in a green sweater that might want to.
We do have one.
Mr. Chairman, not in relation to the town manager act, it's in looking at a lot of different financial issues. I'd like to propose that before each and every annual town meeting, that a recap sheet, call it whatever you will, showing our outstanding debts that we currently have, the biggies, $250,000 on up. That be made part of the town warrant, the annual town warrant, and or have loose handouts moving back to work, we do everything else. I've sat in that auditorium so many times, I've heard people sitting there, blah, 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 it goes on and on. This at least gives those who care a chance to look at our debt and let them decide up here what they want to spend. I think it'd be a little bit more help all the way around. I mean, it's up to you again, we'll talk about it, decide what we want.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I would respond that that's possible. We will have to ask the treasurer collector to work with us on that, because that's his authority. He manages the debt through bond issues and et cetera. But we will ask for that, and in addition, we'll ask the town accountant to put out the status of the town. It's a little hard to read the accounting process because it's under what they call a UMass accounting system, which is unique to the state of Massachusetts, but we can provide that. I think a recap sheet that's like one page that says here's our debt for the next 5 years.
You don't even have to go that, just the current year, like the retirement account.
Massachusetts uses Abacus.
So,
We can do that. Yep.
thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for that. We'll bring that forward as part of this discussion in our next meeting. Any other discussion from the public?
Can I just ask a
Sorry.
question?
Yes.
Actually, Selectman Fleming, did you, just want to make sure I heard this correctly. Did you say that on the capital spending committee, capital budget committee, that they're, before they have to bring it to the town for approval, that they have up to 50,000?
I don't know exactly, but they do review the capital plan that's submitted in the warrant, and they make recommendation on it. So the moderator will ask at the town meeting, does the capital budget committee have a vote on this or a statement?
Right.
And they'll also ask the finance committee, so they do make a statement either for or against any capital.
Right, but they have they have up to a certain amount at their discretion.
Yeah, I don't know what the amount was, it was just raised, it used to be 25,000.
Yes. Excuse me, sir. If I may, sit in the middle of the floor. I sat on the committee, so I have a little insight on this. I may be able to help you on that. Prior to this particular year, capital budget committee weighed in on all expenses over $100,000. Was how the committee was set. Now, at town meeting, that was changed. So at this most recent town meeting, that was changed now to $25,000. So I believe it was our interim town manager said, you know, we have kind of a pretty good hole there,
Yeah.
where only your finance committee may have to look at those particular items. So now your capital budget committee is looking at those items, where before, again, it was over 100,000, now it's 25,000. So any expense over 25,000, capital budget committee would have to weigh in on that.
Okay, but the town doesn't have to vote on it.
I'm sorry?
But the town doesn't have to vote on it?
Yes, those would be warrant articles.
Okay.
Well, the town has to vote on it, the governing body has to vote on any expenditure.
Okay.
There is not a dollar spent in this town that the voters don't vote on.
Okay,
That's not
well, when
Board of
you said they had,
No, Board of Selectmen only can appropriate from certain trust funds. There are 3 of them, the Board of Select 4 actually. Other than that, every nickel that's spent, so when people talk about their tax dollars, they voted it at the town meeting.
Okay.
If they vote no on everything, you won't get a tax bill. So if the misconception is that the Board of Selectmen set the tax rate, that's.
no, that's
So,
not what
But the
I'm,
voters set the tax rate when they vote,
Yeah,
including all
yeah.
capital.
okay.
There is an exception,
What?
snow plowing.
It's still appropriated to the,
You're correct,
they still vote the following year.
the following year, but the year it's expended,
You're
they
allowed to
don't.
do deficit spend.
Yeah, deficit spend on that.
Otherwise, you can't be like the federal government deficit spend just for the fun of it.
But you know, again, technically speaking, that is a line item expense on your budget.
You're right.
So technically speaking, you could hold that line item, you could hold it, you could
You're absolutely correct. And then
You
what?
could actually zero that budget if you didn't.
I'm gonna-
Absolutely correct.
I'm gonna
Here's the
suspend
problem.
this discussion.
The problem is you'd have a lot of guys that wouldn't get paid who would be happy to plow your front yard.
I'm going to suspend this because I think this is going to be a great discussion for our next meeting. So,
Okay.
no other comments from the public? The last one is I'm looking for.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, I have a second.
Seconded.
Everybody
Seconded.
seconds that one.
All in favor?
Aye.
And we are done. Thank you.